I trusted my spouse with my heart and all my secrets. But when I found out about their hidden actions with someone I thought was just a friend, I was left questioning love, loyalty, and whether I ever really knew them. I need to get this out before I lose my mind completely. My name is Mark, I'm 34, and 3 months ago I had what I thought was the perfect life. Beautiful wife Sarah, 2 kids Emma 8 and Jake 5, nice house in the suburbs, stable job. The whole American dream package. I'm writing this because I see guys online making the same mistakes I did, thinking they're smarter, thinking they won't get caught, thinking the grass is greener. Let me save you the trouble it isn't, and you will destroy everything. It started so innocently I almost laugh at how naive I was. My college buddy Dave moved back to town after his divorce. Sarah suggested we invite him over for dinner. He's probably lonely. She said with that sweet smile that used to make my heart skip. Moo should help him get back on his feet. Dave was always the charmer in college. The guy who could talk his way into anything, out of anything. Women loved him. I was the steady one, the reliable friend who drove him home when he was 2, who listened to his relationship drama for hours. That first dinner I noticed how Dave looked at Sarah. How his eyes lingered when she laughed. How he found excuses to brush against her when helping clear the table. But Sarah was just being her usual warm, welcoming self. At least that's what I told myself. Your wife is incredible, man, Dave said as we sat on my back deck with beers after dinner. The kids were asleep, Sarah was inside doing dishes. You're lucky. I felt proud. Yeah, I was lucky. I had chosen well, worked hard for this life. Sarah was gorgeous, smart, funny. She could have married anyone, but she chose me. Dave started coming around more. Sarah would invite him to barbecues, birthday parties, family movie nights. The kids loved Uncle Dave. He brought them presents, played soccer in the yard with Jake, helped Emma with her art projects. He fit right into our family like a missing puzzle piece. I was working longer hours than, trying to make partner at my firm. Sarah handled most of the evening routines alone. When I'd get home late, Dave's car would be in our driveway, just helping with dinner. Sarah would say, he's so good with the kids. The first real warning sign came during Emma's birthday party. I was grilling burgers when I saw Dave and Sarah in the kitchen through the window. They were standing close, too close. His hand was on her lower back as she reached for something in a cabinet. They were laughing about some inside joke I wasn't part of. My chest tightened, but I pushed the feeling down. Sarah loved me. We'd been together for 12 years, married for 9. She wasn't the type to know. I was being paranoid. But the thoughts started eating at me. Little things I'd ignored suddenly seemed significant. How Sarah's face would light up when Dave texted. How she'd started dressing nicer on days she knew he was coming over. How she'd mentioned conversations they'd had that I wasn't part of. One Tuesday evening, I came home to find Dave's car gone but Sarah glowing in a way I hadn't seen in months. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly messed up. Dave just left, she said quickly. We were organizing the garage. The garage looked exactly the same as it had that morning. That night, lying in bed next to my wife of 9 years, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Sarah fell asleep easily, like she always did. But I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, my mind running through every interaction, every glance, every moment that suddenly felt loaded with meaning I'd been too trusting to see. I started paying closer attention. Sarah's phone, which used to sit casually on counters, was now always face down, always with her. She developed a habit of stepping outside to take certain calls. Work stuff, she'd say, but her job as a part-time dental hygienist had never required evening consultations before. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I told Sarah I had to work late, a big client presentation, but the meeting got cancelled last minute. Instead of calling ahead, I decided to surprise her. Maybe we could order takeout, watch a movie after the kids went to bed, try to reconnect. I pulled into our driveway at 6:30 p.m. Dave's car was there again, but that wasn't unusual anymore. What was unusual was that all the curtains were drawn. The house looked closed up, secretive. I used my key quietly, planning to sneak up and surprise them in the kitchen. Maybe catch them in the middle of some innocent family moment that would put my paranoid thoughts to rest. But the house was too quiet. No sounds of dinner preparation, no kids playing, no TV. Just an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. I crept toward the living room and heard it. Soft louder. Sarah's voice, breathy and playful in a way that used to be reserved for me. The kids are at my mom's until 8, she was saying. We have time. My legs felt like concrete. My heart hammered so hard I was sure they could hear it through the walls. I knew I should turn around, walk away, pretend this wasn't happening. But I couldn't move. I took one more step and saw them through the gap in the living room doorway. My wife and my best friend on our couch. Our wedding photo was literally visible in the background as Dave's hands tangled in Sarah's hair, as she whispered things in his ear that made him smile. It wasn't physical yet, but the emotional intimacy was worse somehow. The way they looked at each other like they shared secrets I'd never be part of. The way Sarah touched his face with a tenderness that used to be mine. I backed away slowly, feeling like I was drowning. Made it to my car somehow, sat in the driveway shaking. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. How's the presentation going? Love you, love you. I drove around for 3 hours, ending up at a bar across town where I drank whiskey and tried to figure out what that I was supposed to do with the knowledge that my entire life was built on a lie. When I finally came home at 11 p.m., Sarah was in bed reading like nothing had happened. How'd the presentation go? She asked with perfect wife-like concern. Fine. I managed. Just fine. She kissed my cheek goodnight. The same lips that had been whispering secrets to another man just hours before. That was the beginning of the end, though I was still enough to think I could fix it somehow. Still believed that the woman I'd loved for over a decade was just confused. Just going through a rough patch. Just needed to remember what we had together. I had no idea how much deeper the betrayal went, or how much more I was about to lose. I became a detective in my own home, and I hated myself for it. But I couldn't stop. Every day brought new evidence that the life I thought I knew was just an elaborate performance. Sarah started working out more. New clothes appeared in her closet, things more stylish than her usual mom uniform. She'd always been beautiful, but suddenly she was putting effort into it again. Just not for me. The worst part was how good she got at lying. When I'd ask about her day, she'd paint these elaborate pictures of mundane activities. Grocery shopping, lunch with her sister, picking up dry cleaning. But I'd started checking. Her sister hadn't seen her in weeks. The dry cleaning had been sitting there for 10 days. Dave and I still hung out, which feels insane now but seemed necessary then. I was terrified that pulling away would make them suspicious, force them to be more careful. So I'd sit across from him at sports bars, drinking and pretending to care about the game while he told me about his dating life. Haven't met anyone special yet, he'd say, looking me right in the eye. Still hoping to find what you and Sarah have. The audacity was breathtaking. I installed a tracking app on Sarah's phone. I'm not proud of, but I was desperate to know if I was losing my mind or losing my wife. Turns out it was both. The app showed me places she'd never mentioned. A coffee shop across town where she'd spend 2 hours on Tuesday mornings. A park where she'd sit in her car for extended periods. Dave's apartment complex, multiple times a week. One day the app showed her at a hotel downtown. The Marriott where we'd celebrated our anniversary 3 years ago. She was there for 4 hours on a Wednesday afternoon while I thought she was at work. Sarah. She called in sick today. Said it was a stomach bug. That night she complained of feeling nauseous, asked me to handle dinner and bedtime alone. Academy Award-worthy performance. The kids started noticing something was wrong. Emma, my sensitive 8-year-old, began asking why mommy and daddy didn't hug anymore. Jake started having nightmares, crawling into our bed in the middle of the night only to find his parents lying rigid on opposite sides like strangers. Are you and mommy getting divorced? Emma asked one morning while I was making her breakfast. The question hit me like a physical. Why would you ask that, sweetheart? Because you don't smile at each other anymore. And mommy cries when she thinks no one is looking. Sarah was crying. I'd noticed it too but hadn't wanted to acknowledge what it meant. She'd get emotional watching TV commercials, excuse herself during family dinners, spend long periods in the bathroom. I told myself it was stress from work, from managing the household. But now I knew better. She was crying because she was torn between 2 lives, 2 men, 2 versions of herself. And somehow I was the one making her sad. The confirmation I'd been dreading came on a Friday. I left work early, claiming a migraine, and drove to Dave's apartment. Sarah's car was there, parked in the back corner like she was trying to hide it. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands shaking, throat closing up. This was it. The moment where I'd have to face the truth instead of just suspecting it. I walked up to his door and knocked. Footsteps, whispered voices, a long pause. When Sarah opened the door, her face went completely white. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, her hair done in a way that used to be reserved for date nights with me. Mark. Her voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing here? Dave appeared behind her shirtless, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. At least he had the decency to look ashamed. I think the better question is, what are you doing here? I said. My voice sounded calm, which was weird because everything inside me was screaming. Sarah started crying immediately. Not the pretty tears you see in movies, but desperate sobs that made her whole body shake. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Like that word could somehow undo months of lies, months of sneaking around, months of making me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. How long? I asked. They looked at each other, and even then, even caught red-handed, they were still communicating in their secret language. Sarah whispered. 3 months. Since right after Dave moved back to town. Since that first dinner where I'd been so proud to show off my perfect family to my old friend. The hotel, I'd ask. The coffee shop. All those times you were running errands. Sarah's face crumpled. She knew I'd been tracking her, knew I'd caught her in every lie. How did you? Does it matter? I was getting angry now, the shock wearing off. You've been lying to my face for months, playing happy family while you were this. Dave finally spoke up. Man, I'm sorry. We never meant for it to happen. It just what? I turned on him. This person who'd eaten at my table, played with my kids, slept with my wife. Just accidentally ended up screwing my wife in hotel rooms while I was working to support the family you've been destroying. Mark, please. Sarah reached for me but I stepped back. Her touch felt now. Let me explain. Explain what? How you've been the perfect actress for months. How you've been kissing me goodnight after spending the day with him. How you've been helping our kids with homework while planning your next betrayal. The fight went on for an hour. Sarah alternated between begging for forgiveness and trying to justify what she'd done. I wasn't giving her enough attention. I worked too much. Dave understood her in ways I didn't. Dave mostly stayed quiet, which was probably smart. Every time he opened his mouth, I wanted to put my fist through his face. The worst by. Love you both. Both. Like this was some romantic movie where everyone could just work it out and be happy. Like she hadn't just demolished 2 families, confused 2 kids, and destroyed the best friendship I'd ever had. I left without another word. Drove home to our empty house and sat in the living room where I'd first caught them together. The family photos on the mantel felt like mockeries now. All those smiling faces, all those happy memories that I now had to wonder were real or just Sarah playing a part. Emma and Jake came home from school an hour later. Where's mommy? Jake asked, looking around the quiet house. She had to go somewhere. I managed. It's just us for dinner tonight. I ordered pizza and we ate in front of the TV. Normal Friday night routine in our not so normal family. The kids sensed something was different but didn't push. They were used to the tension by now, the careful way their parents moved around each other. Sarah came home at 10 after the kids were asleep. Her eyes were red, her makeup gone. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in one day. We need to talk, she said. No, I replied. We really don't. That night she slept in the guest room. Our marriage was officially over, even if the paperwork would take months to finalize. But I still had no idea how much more humiliation was waiting for me. The next few weeks were a masterclass in how quickly a life can disintegrate. Sarah moved in with her sister, temporarily, while we figured out custody arrangements. The kids were confused and heartbroken, asking questions I couldn't answer without destroying their image of their mother. I told people we were having some problems. And taking some time apart. The truth felt too raw to share. My wife had an affair with my best friend. How do you announce that at school pickup or neighborhood barbecues? But small towns have a way of making secrets impossible to keep. It started with whispers at Emma's soccer games. Parents who used to chat with me normally now offered sympathetic smiles and awkward small talk. Sarah had always been more social than me, more connected to the community. Apparently her sister had loose lips and a big mouth. The story spread like wildfire. Mark's wife ran off with his best friend. Poor Mark, so clueless, working while they carried on right under his nose. Did you know they were meeting at that hotel downtown? Can you imagine how he must feel? I became a walking cautionary tale. The guy who trusted too much, worked too hard, ignored the warning signs. People looked at me with pity, which was somehow worse than anger would have been. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Sarah wanted half of everything, plus alimony, plus primary custody of the kids. Her lawyer painted me as an absent workaholic into another man's arms through emotional neglect. My lawyer was more direct. She cheated. In this state, that matters. But you need to prepare for this to get. There was an understatement. Sarah's story kept changing. First, it was my fault for working too much. Then it was Dave's fault for pursuing her when she was vulnerable. Then it was nobody's fault, just two people who found unexpected love. She called it love. The worst part was watching what it did to the kids. Emma became withdrawn, her grades dropping as she tried to process why mommy didn't live with us anymore. Jake started acting out at school, getting in fights with kids who made comments about his broken family. Why can't you and mommy just say sorry and be friends again? Jake asked one night during our bedtime routine. That's what you tell me and Emma to do when we fight. How do you explain betrayal to a 5-year-old? How do you tell him that some sorries can't fix what's been broken? The custody evaluation was. A court-appointed psychologist interviewed all of us, including the kids. Emma cried through most of her session. Jake kept asking when he could go home to both his parents. Sarah showed up to court looking like the perfect suburban mom. Conservative dress, minimal makeup. The same wholesome look that had attracted me 15 years ago. She played the role of the repentant wife who'd made a mistake but deserved another chance at happiness. I looked like exactly what I was, a broken man, who'd lost everything that mattered to him. The judge gave Sarah primary custody, weekends and alternating holidays for me. My own children would now be visitors in my life. The court recognizes that both parents love these children, the judge said. However, maintaining stability and continuity is in their best interest. A stability. Sarah was living with Dave now, introducing my kids to a new family structure built on the ashes of our old one. But that was considered more stable than letting them stay in their childhood home with their father. The financial settlement was devastating. Half my retirement, half the equity in the house I'd have to sell, monthly payments that would leave me scraping by for years. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the first weekend they stayed with Sarah and Dave. Emma came back on Sunday evening, quiet and withdrawn. When I asked about her weekend, she shrugged. Who was okay? Uncle Dave made pancakes. Uncle Dave, the man who destroyed our family, was now making pancakes for my daughter. Did you have fun? I pressed gently. I guess. Dave's apartment is smaller than our house. And Mummy cries a lot when she thinks we can't see. Even in her new life, Sarah was crying. The guilt was eating her alive, but she'd made her choice. She'd chosen passion over stability, excitement over loyalty, Dave over me. Work became my refuge, but even that was complicated. Word had gotten around the office. Some colleagues were supportive, others seemed to view me as damaged goods. My focus was shot, my productivity down. Making partner seemed increasingly unlikely. 6 months after that awful Friday at Dave's apartment, I ran into them at the grocery store. They were shopping together, looking domestic and settled. Sarah had her hand on Dave's arm as they debated cereal choices, the same way she used to touch me when we were young and still believed in forever. Dave saw me first and had the grace to look uncomfortable. Sarah turned, and for a moment, her face lit up with genuine happiness before remembering where we stood with each other. Mark, she said softly. How are you? Fine, I lied. Just picking up some things for the kids' weekend. An awkward silence stretched between us. This woman who used to be my best friend, my confidant, my partner in everything, was now a stranger who happened to share my children. They miss you during the week, she said, and I could hear the guilt in her voice. They miss having their family together. I replied, not caring if it was cruel. Dave cleared his throat. Yeah. Sarah agreed quickly. We should go. I watched them walk away, pushing their cart full of groceries for their new life together. Dave said something that made Sarah laugh, and for a second, she looked genuinely happy, happier than she'd looked with me in years. That night alone in my apartment, I finally understood something that had been nagging at me for months. Sarah hadn't just fallen for Dave, she'd fallen out of love with me long before he came back to town. Dave was just the catalyst, not the cause. I'd been so focused on building our life that I'd stopped nurturing our love. The work, the routine, the assumption that marriage meant we didn't have to try anymore. I'd taken her for granted, taken us for granted. That didn't excuse what she did. Didn't excuse the lies, the betrayal, the way she'd torn apart our family instead of talking to me about her unhappiness. But it helped me understand how we'd gotten to that Friday afternoon when my world collapsed. A year later, I'm still picking up the pieces. Emma's doing better in therapy, though she still asks when we're all going to live together again. Jake has stopped getting in fights but barely speaks to me during our weekend visits. Sarah and Dave got married last month. A small ceremony, just family. The kids were in the wedding party. Emma showed me pictures on her phone that only children can manage. Mommy looked really pretty, she said. And Dave cried during the words part. Dave cried. At his wedding to my ex-wife. While my children watched him promise to love her forever. The same promises I'd made 9 years ago. I've started dating, sort of. A few awkward dinners with women who seem nice enough but aren't Sarah. It's hard to trust. Hard to believe that someone won't just decide they deserve better and up everything we build together. The guys at work try to set me up, offering advice about getting back out there. Sarah wasn't worth it anyway, they say. You're better off without her. But that's the thing they don't understand. Sarah was worth it. She was everything I wanted in a partner, a mother, a friend. The problem wasn't that she wasn't worth it. The problem was that I stopped showing her she was worth everything to me. I see them sometimes around town. They look happy, settled. Like they're building the life Sarah always wanted, just with a different leading man. The kids seem to be adjusting, creating new traditions, new inside jokes, new memories that don't include me. Sometimes I catch myself wondering what would have happened if I'd paid attention sooner, if I'd noticed Sarah pulling away before Dave came back, if I'd prioritized our marriage instead of just assuming it would always be there. But those thoughts are They lead to a dark place where I replay every fight, every missed dinner, every time I chose work over family. A place where I blame myself for her choices, her lies, her decision to destroy everything we built instead of fighting for it. The truth is simpler and more complex than blame. We both failed our marriage, just in different ways. I failed through neglect. She failed through betrayal. The kids are paying the price for both our failures. Last weekend, Jake asked me a question that still keeps me awake at night. Daddy, do you think love is real? He's 6 years old and already doubting one of the fundamental truths that's supposed to make life worth living. Because his parents couldn't figure out how to keep their promises to each other. Yes, buddy. I told him. Love is real. Sometimes grown-ups just forget how to take care of it. But privately, I wonder if I was lying to him. If love is just a chemical reaction that fades, leaving people to either fight for something that's already gone or find it somewhere else, consequences be. I used to believe in forever. In vows that meant something, in trust that could weather any storm, in love that grew stronger with time instead of weaker. I used to think that good people made good choices, that marriages ended because people were incompatible, not because someone got bored and decided to trade in their old life for a shinier model. Now I know better. Now I know that anyone can betray anyone, that love can turn to indifference, that the person you trust most in the world can become a stranger who used to share your bed. The scariest part isn't that Sarah stopped loving me. It's that she never stopped. Even now, I can see it in her eyes when we exchange the kids. Some part of her still cares, still remembers what we had, still feels guilty for destroying it. She chose Dave anyway. Chose excitement over stability, passion over partnership, new love of the love we built together over 15 years. I've learned that loving someone doesn't mean they won't you. Trusting someone doesn't mean they won't betray you. Building a life with someone doesn't mean they won't burn it down when someone better comes along. These days, when people ask me about dating or relationships, I just smile and change the subject, because what am I supposed to tell them? That love is a risk not worth taking. That marriage is just a legal contract that can be broken with enough lawyers and lies. That the person sleeping next to you might be dreaming about someone else. I can't say those things, because I still want to believe they're not true. But late at night, in my empty apartment, listening to the silence where my family's laughter used to be, I know the truth that nobody wants to hear. Love isn't enough. Trust isn't forever. And sometimes the person you'd take a bullet for is the one holding the